So, I guess on some level I tried to promise myself I was going to try to capture these, so I should try to do that every once in a while. Not that I expect my useless insider impotent rage will do anything about anything, but just in case, on the off chance. Yeah. See, now that I'm doing it on a video, I'm treating it like it's a performative art, and it's not meant to be performative, because I'm not interested in the interpretations of what my ego or my humility are, because a multitude of reasons, but not least the which of is if I'm right, nobody's going to agree with me now anyway, so what does it matter if everybody now thinks I'm right or wrong? Wow, full of yourself, huh? Yeah. Here's my thing. I guess the date. What is the date? It's October 2nd, 2020? Something like that? Somewhere in that neighborhood? Today Trump got diagnosed with COVID. If, for whatever reason, this does become famous. And I am swollen with impotent rage. Not anybody else, other than me. This is where I start talking about why the ego thing matters, I guess. I was explaining a lot of this stuff to Autumn tonight. But again, I'm now in front of the camera and I know it, and if somebody's watching this later, I'm trying to perform for you. So hi, how are you doing? Do you feel good? Excellent, I'm glad. Are you glad you're watching me? Am I brilliant? Am I insane? Whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. I certainly sound like a crazy person. That's a plus. Whatever, it's the day that Trump got COVID. And everybody's talking about how much not everyone, some select group of people, because you people in the future who are smart enough to differentiate between these two different groups and how they function. Well, it's probably more than two different groups. It's probably a multitude of different groups. It's probably actually not like types, but whatever. That's a whole different fucking conversation. Some people are happy that he has COVID. And some people are explicitly trying to say they're not happy he has it because they want to feel like they're virtuous in front of other people. I shouldn't be laughing at this. It's just a really hard problem, and I'm, as I said, swollen with my impotent rage to do anything about it. I probably can't see it clearly, but I feel like I can. But if I feel like I can see it clearly and I don't know what to do about it, maybe that means I don't see it clearly, and I'm willing to accept that argument. Or potential probability or reality based on what people past us figure out. So I guess let me jump ahead of the point and skip past the ego thing. I can see what's wrong with all of you, but I feel like I really can. I feel like I can see what's wrong with everybody, but I have no fucking idea what to do about it. I think there's a big disconnect with understanding of problems like, I don't know, gosh, take the 7 deadlies, right? Greed, gluttony, lust, vanity. As I try to perform in front of my camera. People talk about greed like it's something that needs to be eradicated from the human condition, not properly understanding that it's something that is a permanent attribute of the human condition. It's not that greed is the problem, it's that our inability to properly understand and leverage how someone might have a intrinsic motivation to try to acquire more than those beyond them, independent of whether or not those beyond them suffer, and how that can potentially be catastrophic or negative in consequence, and see that as a thing that has to be eradicated rather than that as a thing that has to be understood, so we can learn how to manipulate it and master it to our own ends in a way that the people who are greedy are thankful for being less impactful. That's so fucking far beyond us. So, I can see it. I can see, like, the edges of it, the form of it, the blurry light at the end of the tunnel of it, but I can't see it clearly enough to know what the oncoming traffic is and how we veer to avoid it. And that even belies what a complicated problem it is and how far we are away from properly grasping it. Like, we still think greed is something that you can get rid of. For anybody that is watching this later, or if this ever does become anything. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? We thought greed was something you could get rid of. Avarice and gluttony and rage. We thought those were things that we were supposed to eliminate from the human condition. Can you believe how fucking ignorant we were? Oh my god. They're not. It's like trying to convince oxygen how not to combine with hydrogen because we don't like water. It's that fucking stupid. We're just not smart enough to know it yet. See, even me, I'll totally admit to some level of this because I watch people I know and people that I have some semblance of respect for talk about Trump getting COVID, and I'm like disappointed in them because I don't understand. Like, what are you fucking talking about, Robert? Of course they don't. Why would they? That's not the natural state of elements to understand themselves and build rocket engines, you fucking moron. Why would they get that's how they're supposed to work? Why would they not think the problem is that they're righteous and they're just and everybody who disagrees with them is racist and bigots? Like, why wouldn't they think that? Okay, here I am, like, enraged at them and disappointed in them as though that's going to do anything. Or that even properly understands a way to remotely come close to addressing the problem. Oh, man. You're a good girl, Sunshine. Yeah, you're a good girl. So beyond how I'm broken, and beyond how so let's assume I'm broken, let's assume maybe I have delusions of grandeur, let's assume both of those things are true, right? Let's assume the overwhelming probability is I'm not smart enough to properly understand the subject matter with which I'm grappling, and let's simultaneously assume that overwhelming the probability is that even if I think I understand it, I'm overwhelmingly incorrect and I'm insane. Let's assume both of those things at the same time. For fun, right? Does that mean you don't try? No, I don't think so. I think it means you try. I think you have to accept those things before you try. Because if you're going to dance with the devil by the pale moonlight, you got to be ready to go to hell in some sense. So, let's assume we can't get rid of greed. Let's assume we can't get rid of rage. Let's assume we can't get rid of envy. Let's assume even a step past that, it's not only we can't get rid of them, but they are permanent atomical fixtures that we need to somehow learn to manipulate. Fucking shit, man. How do we do that? It's so easy to turn those things into poisonous gas. How do you make them not? And how do you take a group of people that are so interested in their own vanity and power, that are willing to try to manipulate those things explicitly to the point of turning them into poisonous gas because they know that will get them what they want. And it's the quickest, fastest, easiest way, and anybody can do it, and it's virtually guaranteed to work. It's been guaranteed to work throughout, centuries, if not millennia. Like, how do you make something that scratches that itch in those people and simultaneously disallows them from doing it? Well, maybe you don't. Like, maybe it's not maybe the trick isn't to. So, sorry, I guess I should explain for context, because I'll probably want to listen to the brilliance of my own voice later. God. For reference, anybody that's listening. So the point of this is there are human characteristics, and there are human characteristics that some people view as negative attributes and things that we need to be rid of, but I don't think that that's necessarily accurate. I think it's not there are things that need to be rid of. I think there are things that need to be learned to be mastered. So if you take something like fire and how it burns down the forest and burns down to your homes and burns down your environment, the thing about fire is not to figure out how to stop fire from being fire. The thing about fire is to figure out how to properly harness fire to your advantage to cook meat so you can make the most nutrient-rich and dense possible thing that you can eat, and there go, prompt brain growth and yada, 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 right? So it's not about stopping greed. It's about learning how to properly harness greed to advantageous effect. So, going back, maybe if we're talking about power brokers and megalomaniacs and people that are interested in operating in Congress and Senate and executive office, I mean, there's a couple different possibilities. It's either we figure out how to leverage those people properly in such a way that they don't utilize rage as a mechanism in order to incite their base to gain power. But that seems difficult to do because that's so easy for them to accomplish. So preventing them from doing that seems complicated beyond my imagination, for sure. Maybe not somebody else's, but I'm by no means the smartest person on the planet or the smartest person in the world, so maybe that's something somebody to figure out. So maybe it's not maybe it's not figuring out how to have them scratch that itch while not doing that. Maybe it's about having them scratch that itch in a way that they can do that, but in the way that they do that actually generates propulsion or lift in such a way that we can leave the planet, metaphorically speaking. And that's why I'm a little batty, if you'll apologize, beyond the fact that I've been drinking. It's that this is a very complicated problem and a task that every time I look at it, it seems so overwhelmingly beyond me that I don't understand the hubris in me even talking about this problem like it's something I can attribute to because it's so complicated. I guess everybody has their opinions on what we're supposed to do about who runs the country, so fucking why not me, alright? I guess that's how I justify it. But how? How do you do that? Like, that's part of what the founders were trying to address with the separation of powers, right? And the local, state, federal, executive, judicial, and the Senate. Is that the right breakdown? I can't remember. But that's part of what they were trying to. That's part of what they were trying to do, right? Is they were trying to recognize this isn't a thing that you can do away with. How do you compensate for the fact that this will never go away, right? Maybe that's the right approach, but if that's the right approach, we need to understand that the way that people like that will gain power is explicitly through the quickest possible activation of what their potential power base is, and whether that's fear, which it likely is and likely will remain for the remainder of time unless somebody figures out a more accurate way that people are somehow born knowing these things, which seems wildly unlikely. I don't know, maybe somebody will figure it out, and if you do, like, mazel tov, like, my hat is off to you, sir, whoever you are, and seriously, on behalf of the entire human race, fucking thank you for figuring that out, and like, I truly, sincerely mean that. Thank you for figuring that out, if one of you do. But, if not, See, one of the things that's brilliant about rockets or firearms or something in that vein is not that they stop an explosion from happening, but that they make an explosion happen in such a way that we can achieve fantastic things with the explosion. So maybe it's not that we're supposed to stop megalomania from inciting fury. Maybe it's megalomania incites fury and we use fury to leave the atmosphere. But how? How would we fucking do that? Like, how is that possible? Like, how is it possible that we can leverage tribalism and hatred of outgroups in order to advance the species? But I don't see how it's not true. I just don't see how to do it. The thing is, like, somebody like a couple 100,000 years from now, this is going to seem ludicrously obvious. And I'm going to seem like I'm a fucking idiot trying to struggle with this problem. But that's right? Like, how could it not be that? How could it not be leveraging greed and desire for power, and the quickest route to that greed and power being leveraging the fears and anger of in-groups against out-groups to attain power? That seems the obvious fastest way, and it seems like it will always be the obvious fastest way to do it. How do you make that a net-net plus? But I don't see how that's wrong. That seems like that's accurate. It seems like the way forward is to figure out how politicians making people hate one another is somehow the thing that propels humanity forward. That just seems so asinine, but I don't see how it's wrong. Oh, fuck's sake, man. Okay, let's try to get past the justifying against ego and recognizing internal inadequacy and impotency. Like, okay, so let's say that's right. Let's say that's right. Let's say that's right for 5 minutes, right? Let's say it is that the predilection of the individual for the impetus of personal gain explicitly as the way that it leverages the resonance and harmonics of fear through the in-group opposed to the out-group, because that's a fundamental mechanic of how human beings work. If that is the avenue that those people that are pursuing power must needs take, because it is the most immediate, obvious bonding mechanism, how do you make that advantageous? Or how do you manipulate that in such a way that it takes the second choice, but the second choice is close enough to the first choice that it doesn't balk too much? How do you do that? Well, I guess we break it down by core components, right? Like, it's... So the megalomania, let's get past the whatever particular negative term someone might use to describe it. The point is evolutionary fitness, right? The point is, how do I propagate my genes across the species? So the point is, like, how do I have recognition? How do I have status? And how do I have power and authority? Like, that's ultimately the point, right? Like, that's ultimately really, really the point. Like, when you get it down to, like, evolutionary brass tacks, that's the point, right? But it's also the... complication with, like, humans and apes and things like us is if you were someone that could, throughout the course of your tribe, mate with every single female and deny all other males access to any females, the consequence of that would be that all the other males would gang up and kill you. So there's a ratio there about access to power and access to recognition that's just right up to the point before it leads to everybody killing you in order to take your power away from you. Right? Like, that's really, like, their sweet spot. And, like, they would like clearly they would like more power than that. But part of what, if you look at like politicians or anybody that functions like a power hierarchy paradigm, like they understand that intrinsically. You can tell by how they function. Well, I mean, I can tell by how they function. They're trying to figure out what the closest is they can get to that line without going over, like they're playing Price is Right, right? So if the point is fitness as close to the line as you can possibly ride it, power, authority, like adoration, right? And the quickest possible avenue to that is telling other people what they are likely to lose, that you can protect them from losing, or what they're likely potentially able to have. But it's not have. Have is like the second. Have is a secondary objective. Lose is the primary objective, right? Like, if you vote for me, you'll get this. That's the secondary. But if you don't vote for me, you'll lose this. That's the primary. That's the primary way they do it. And that's all geared towards like the sort of like power mechanism. So how do you use that? On the off chance I'm right about any of this, and some of you sons of bitches are watching this later, and you're like, oh, dude, I'm watching him. He's going to get there to the answer. Like, and you already know it, because, like, either I got someone really close to it, or you figure it out, like, go fuck yourselves. Because it sucks not knowing the answer to this question. But that's right? Because we're talking about it like it's a chemical reaction, like it's a elemental sort of like chemistry. It's not you're trying to stop that reaction from happening. It's you realizing that's a most immediate, obvious reaction it's going to take. So how do you actually take that and put it in confines or in a grouping that it feels like it gets to activate that in such a way that it satisfies whatever the desire it is it's looking for, but simultaneously you understand enough about what the reactive properties of it are that you know how to use it in order to advance the totality of the species. Like, that's the fucking question, and that's why I feel so impotent, because I don't know the fucking answer to that, but I can't help but feel that's the right question. Everybody's talking about how do you make politicians not greedy, how do you make them honest, and that's wrong. That's not the right question. It's not the right question at all, I don't think. Anyway, maybe I'm completely fucking wrong about that too, but it doesn't feel like it's the right question. It feels like the right question is that is what's going to happen no matter what. How do you make that advantageous? I don't fucking know. But I can't figure out how that's not the right question. Everybody talking about how do we stop greed, how do we reduce this, how do we... The problem is people just need to not do this. All these people are just like power mongers and we need to remove them from power. Like, you're fucking imbeciles. Like, no, that's not the... No. It's that's what's going to happen. How do you take advantage of it? I can't figure out how that's not the right question. So I guess on at least some positive note, I feel like I properly understand the question. I feel like I understand the atomic weight, elemental properties of it as such that I understand that is the question. It's not how you stop greed and megalomania. It's how you, like, manipulate greed and megalomania to your own advantage. And to their advantage. It almost feels like it has to be. But simultaneously to the advantage of the entire species, which fucking also simultaneously is to the disadvantage of some of the species, and I don't know you can avoid that either. Like, fuck, man. Like, I can't... Every time I try to think about these questions and what the potential answers are to them, I can't figure out anything that remotely comes close to starting to resemble an answer that isn't something similar to the equivalent of stripping electrons off of an atom, which is tantamount to using up individuals, which it's not benefiting, which means some people are fuel, and I don't know how to get around that, and that is fucking maddening. Like there isn't a chemical reaction. I mean, maybe there is because I'm not a chemist. Maybe there is. Maybe there is. And maybe this is something I need to study more closely. Like maybe there is actual chemistry where you can't do this, and the problem is just explicitly my lack of chemistry. Maybe that's true. I hope that's true, because if that's not true and I'm right about what I'm talking about, then there is no possible way to achieve this positive affect through the greed of some individuals that doesn't necessarily require the sacrifice of other individuals, and I don't like that at all, but I don't know how that's wrong either. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I could see how it would be very easy to jump to the conclusion of wartime calculus as far as that goes. You know, well, yeah, you're going to lose some people. The question is, how do you lose the least amount of people? So that makes it very easy to justify the loss of the people that are required for the stripping of the electrons. But I don't know how satisfied I can be with that. I don't know how much I can justify that to myself using that methodology. I'm not sure I can. I'm like, I get the wartime analogy, I really do, but that feels like it makes it too easy to give up. It makes it too easy to think, oh, well, that's what has to happen, so let's just figure out who we're going to sacrifice, and that's what we'll do. Like, it feels like it goes too easy there. It feels like you need to take a few people that are potentially capable of solving that problem and push them to the point that they go fucking mad before you let that problem go. And if they're the people that are supposed to potentially be solving that problem, they'll be willing to go fucking mad to solve it. And those would be voluntary sacrifices. That would be different. So how do you take advantage of megalomania, greed, demand to be alpha primacy inside of hierarchies, right up until the line where people want to kill you but don't consider it worth what's necessary to try to kill you because they're not absolutely positive they can convince enough people on their side to kill you and not suffer the ramifications, right? Right, power right up to the point, basically like full Genghis Khan about it. So how do you take that, realize that's what their probable goal is, and whether or not that's the probable goal, whether or not they realize it or not, and trying to even explain to them that's their goal seems like it's folly, but maybe that's relevant, but it seems like it's not. How do you take that up to that point of that line and say, if they're trying to reach that line, the quickest, easiest, most expedient way to get to that line that's reliable, and it's a well you can never go to too many times, is riling up their fear, or their angst, or their anger, or their intrinsic nature to other. And you assume those things are always going to happen. How do you make that advantageous in such a way that it sacrifices no people in its wake or the least possible amount? And what does that look like? Fucking shit, that's a terrible question. Oh my god. You know, I guess personal story time. I'm struggling with this question. One of the things I was talking to Autumn about tonight specifically was stories about me getting getting identified with perfect pitch and the potential to go to Duke on a full ride scholarship, Duke being a university, in case this is super far in the future. And my mother saying no and all that stuff. Like, what really, my mother saying no and all that stuff, in case I wasn't super clear. For a long time, I was really upset about what that meant to me and what that meant to my personal capability and what I wasn't allowed or enabled to achieve or whatever the fuck. But as I got older and a little more cemented in whatever this is, the thing that grieved me the most was not my circumstance and what I had been denied. Now, this is where we get into crazy, ego talk. But it was what the world had been denied because I was not allowed to be. But before you start roasting me, all right, give me a minute. It wasn't, because the immediate thing I recognized as soon as I realized that was not that what the world was denied by not having the ultimate experience of Robert. It wasn't that. What it really was I realized there were hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people like me that the world didn't have because of the world not knowing how to treat them or process them or care for them. See, I'm not going to bother explaining the whole bootstrap thing because my assumption is if anybody is watching this or cares about this, it's leaps and bounds in the future or somebody who understands what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to justify the fucking position. There are hundreds of thousands of fucking Vernikovs that can be playing fucking that we just don't have access to because we ground them into powder. And that was the thing that I realized that was the biggest fucking tragedy. It wasn't that I wasn't allowed to be me or that the world wasn't allowed to have me as I was supposed to be, but it was that I'm not the smartest. And even if you took, let's say our statistics in measuring of intelligence capability, right? Let's say on the planet of 7 billion, there are 1 million people smarter than me, sake argument. And let's say we could even twist 10 of those to not being ground into dust and to instead being leveraged and utilized. What would the world look like? And if you're one of those several hundred thousand or million, you can immediately see it's drastic. It is severe. And if you take that 10 and turn it to 100,000, I can't even comprehend how different the world would be. Literally. I can't. It is beyond my capability to grasp, 12 to a raven is many. It's 1, 2, 3, many, right? And that is a many. I can't even imagine what the world would be like. That is what made me sad. I was talking to Otto about that tonight. It wasn't that I went through the various litany of shit that I went through, which was a litany. Whoever feels bad for me or doesn't, that doesn't really matter. But it wasn't that. It was just I felt bad, my life was bad, and it wasn't that the world didn't have access to the brilliance of me. It was that there's over 100,000 people like me, almost certainly, and if even 10 of those got switched from one side to the other, the face of the world would be completely different. That's what made me sad. Oh yeah? In case it comes up. It's a, fuck, what are they? Big, white, fluffy dogs. It's the kind, I'm sure I'll mention it later, it's the kind Autumn's grandparents have at the farm. Well, he's tiny, and he's kept in this little, God, fuck, man. Every time I see the area that dog's kept in, Anyway. irrespective of my self-pity and irrespective of my impotent rage. I don't think the negative proclivities, as we define them in our current day and age, I don't think they are negative proclivities per se. I think they are proclivities we do not understand how to leverage. I think they are elemental attributes we do not properly understand the manipulation or utilization thereof. I think that's what our problem is. It's not how do we stop greed. It's greed serves a purpose. How do we make greed our bitch? That's the problem we don't know how to solve because we're still trying to think about how we eliminate greed. And I have no fucking idea what to do about it. Sorry.